They called me the family secret. They didn't just call me that. They whispered it, like a disgusting joke, right into the ear of the man I was finally brave enough to love. My brother, Mark, delivered the blow on my 30th birthday, and I swear I saw the exact moment my heart turned to stone. My name is Leah, and for 30 years I was the black sheep of a dynasty built on lies and immaculate appearances. Mark was the golden heir, the charming tyrant who ran the family business. My parents, Eleanor and Richard, were the image-obsessed overlords who favored him utterly. I was the bohemian disaster, the artist they tolerated out of obligation, a permanent stain on their perfect portrait. I knew my family was cruel, but I never expected the betrayal to be so precisely engineered, timed to ruin the single most important night of my year. We were at a ridiculously expensive restaurant for my birthday, a public performance, not a celebration. I brought my date, Ethan. Ethan was kind, brilliant, and completely unaware of the viper's nest he had just walked into. I was nervous, but hopeful. I thought, tonight I'll finally show them I'm happy. That hope died with the arrival of the champagne. Mark, bloated with self-importance and expensive wine, had been circling, waiting for his opportunity. He kept making snide comments about my failed gallery shows and my struggling creative fund. My parents tusked at me, maintaining their perfect neutrality, which was, in itself, an act of betrayal. Then, Mark stood up for a toast. He didn't toast me. He put his arm around Ethan, leaning in as if sharing a crucial, hilarious piece of information. The entire table, including my sister Clara, leaned in, waiting for the punchline. "You know, Ethan," Mark announced, loud enough to stop conversations at nearby tables. "Leah here is the family secret. We don't talk about her much. She's always been a bit of a charity case. We keep her around, out of obligation. Otherwise, she might expose what she did to Uncle Robert." The last sentence hit me like a physical blow. Uncle Robert. They hadn't just insulted me, they had dropped a dark, terrifying hint about an old family tragedy, implying I was responsible for my uncle's incapacitation years ago. Ethan's face went rigid with shock. My mother gave me a warning glance that screamed, "Do not contradict your brother." That was the extreme betrayal, the moment they weaponized a personal tragedy to publicly shatter my dignity and my new relationship. I felt the hot, stinging shame, but beneath it, a cold fury ignited. They had crossed the line. I stared at Mark. He was basking in the silence, savoring my humiliation. Then I spoke, my voice low, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion, cutting through the heavy silence. "Mark," I said, pulling the attention from Ethan back to me, "I suggest you check your bank account." The words hung in the air. Mark stopped laughing. The confusion on his face was the first drop of sweet, sweet revenge. I hadn't answered their terrible accusation. I had flipped the script onto something more terrifying and immediate. "What?" Mark sputtered, his smile dissolving. "Check your bank account, Mark," I repeated. I stood up, leaving my untouched plate. Ethan, looking utterly bewildered, followed me out. I didn't stop. I told the maitre d' charge the dinner to my brother's main corporate card. Outside, I faced Ethan. He wasn't just embarrassed, he looked scared. "Leah, what did he mean? About your uncle?" I knew I had to tell him everything, because the truth was far stranger than the lie. I revealed that my artistic ventures were largely a cover. For the past 2 years, I'd been secretly working as a highly skilled, ethical forensic financial investigator, specializing in untangling complex offshore tax evasion and corporate fraud for a select wealthy clientele. My family's dismissiveness of my hobby had been my greatest asset. It allowed me to operate in the shadows, unnoticed. My personal side project, quietly investigating my own family's finances. The investigation began years ago when my Uncle Robert, who originally ran the company, was mysteriously sidelined with a sudden illness and lost all his shares, which Mark swiftly acquired for almost nothing. I suspected foul play then, but had no proof. The breakthrough came a month ago. I found a major discrepancy, a large undisclosed offshore account in the Cayman Islands, linked to the family business. Mark was systematically siphoning funds from the main company accounts into this offshore entity, declaring them as legitimate business expenses or investments, then transferring them to his personal, undeclared accounts. The first twist: the timing. I hadn't just found the evidence a month ago. I had found the final piece of the puzzle, the coded key to the main transfer accounts, 3 days ago. And I hadn't hesitated. I had spent the last 72 hours meticulously preparing an irrefutable dossier that connected Mark's corporate fraud to tax evasion and money laundering. That very morning, before getting dressed for my birthday, I anonymously submitted the dossier to the IRS, the FBI, and the state's Financial Crimes Unit. I had received a pre-arranged encrypted notification just an hour before dinner. Case accepted. Action initiated. The moment I looked at Mark across the table, I knew the wire transfers were already being traced, and his accounts were in the process of being frozen. That's why I told him to check your bank account. It wasn't a threat. It was a factual status update. Ethan was stunned, realizing I wasn't a victim. I was a hidden operative. The initial shock turned to awe. He saw not the charity case, but the genius who had just quietly executed a financial nuclear strike. The next morning, the phone call started. Mark was screaming, "Leah, what the hell did you do? My personal accounts are frozen. The company accounts are under review. Are you insane?" My parents called next, furious, but still in denial. "Leah, this is some childish prank. Unfreeze Mark's money. You're ruining us." They threatened to disown me. My response was cold and final. "I told you to check your bank account. Now you know. Enjoy your charity case being the one who exposed your golden boy's fraud." I hung up. The second twist: Mark's hidden treachery. Mark, convinced I was holding his money hostage, made a desperate move. He called me from a burner phone and tried to blackmail me. "I know where you hid your art funds, Leah. If you don't release my accounts, I'll expose your own tax secrets." I laughed. "Mark, my art funds are meticulously documented, but thank you for the confirmation. I'm recording this call. Did you just confess to attempting to obstruct a federal investigation?" He hung up, realizing he was digging his own grave deeper. The pressure mounted for Mark's 40th birthday gala, a massive, public event designed to shore up his failing image. Mark, in a fit of desperate hubris, sent me an invitation, a final challenge to confront him. I went, impeccably dressed, with Ethan on my arm. My presence was meant to show the family that the charity case was now their silent executioner. Mark cornered me. "What do you want, Leah? Name your price. Just get the authorities off my back." "I want you to tell the truth, Mark," I said, my gaze steady. "The truth about everything tonight." He scoffed. "Never. I'll go to jail before I give you the satisfaction." Mark took the stage for his speech, talking about resilience and overcoming challenges. Just as he was winding down, I stepped forward, taking a mic. "Excuse me, Mark," I said, my voice cutting through the polite applause. "Before you finish, I think there's a more important challenge you need to overcome and share with everyone." The third twist: the uncle's secret witness. I didn't play audio this time. Instead, I introduced a witness. This is Mr. Jeffrey Thorne. He was Uncle Robert's personal physician before Mark took over the company. Mr. Thorne, looking nervous but determined, addressed the stunned audience. "Mark pressured me years ago to misdiagnose Robert. He used a slow-acting compound to make him appear progressively mentally incapacitated so he could legally seize his shares. When I refused, Mark ruined my career. Leah's evidence is the only thing that brought me back." The revelation was horrifying. My parents screamed, not in denial, but in shock at the true depths of Mark's depravity. The fourth twist: the public arrest. At that exact moment, the IRS and FBI agents walked in, making their way directly to the stage. They had been waiting. They presented Mark with an arrest warrant for tax fraud, corporate embezzlement, and the attempted incapacitation of a family member. As Mark was being cuffed, a familiar older man slowly walked into the ballroom. It was Uncle Robert, alive and well. The fifth and final twist: the legacy. Uncle Robert addressed Mark. "You thought you got away with it, but your charity case exposed everything. Leah saved my life and the company. You've lost everything, Mark." My parents collapsed, finally seeing the monster they created and adored. I looked at Mark, now being led away. You wanted a secret, Mark. Here it is. The family secret wasn't me being a charity case. The family secret was your treason. And now, everyone knows. I had the last word. Mark went to prison. The company was returned to Uncle Robert, and I became his chief financial investigator, respected and feared in equal measure. I was no longer the family secret. I was the family's reckoning.